Okay, back to where we were before the dog did go out. Let's see here. How's that look? I could really use to have a monitor for doing these things, but oh well, we'll muddle through. Let's call that good. We're talking about the ring. The ring's down here. The ring opens up the door for the mechanism. Open it, swing down. So this ring, when you pull it, is pulling these little jaws down. And those jaws are going into these two dropouts here. So that's what's holding it. You got this, you pull down. And the problem is here, and I have almost done this 2 or 3 times. I'll hold it here. It likes to sit like that, and if you just take it and go up, you're going to either bend this shaft or you're going to end up bending that part. I guess it could potentially get caught behind the indicator dial there as well. So every time you work on one, you have to push it over to there, and then you can close it. Personally, let's put the camera back down. This is a very low budget setup, about as low budget as you get. What I do is I push it like that, I go like this, and then I just pull it to put it back. The jaws are angled, so I assume you can probably just push it real hard and it'll snap back together, but I always pull it just for the heck of it. So on the inside here, 3 things to show. So there's your glass window again. It's kind of got a, kind of textured, not textured, but blobby, let's say blobby look to it. It's upside down, but that's a TT111-4 for this part of the housing. There's some sort of stamp there. So as you're turning this, that is your spring. This right here on these 2 dropouts, or these 2 little things here, that is the spring that's turning the mechanism back or turning the handle back and getting it to where it needs to be. So that's kind of interesting. You got a long spring about that long on a Duncan 50 or 60. On this, it's that spiral one there. Great hammer tone paint once again. And that is the holder for the glass window for the coin catcher. So you can see, I'm going to tilt it up a little bit. That is where the coin catcher would catch, but mine doesn't have the coin catcher on it. The dial indicator on this particular one is as nice as you could ever ask for. So you can see how that works. The little arrow there loops up from the bottom, you can see right there, and then goes from right to left. So, and there you've got the red ball mechanism. There we can see in there, right there. And of course it's down right now. When it pops up, it only makes it maybe to about there. It doesn't go all the way up. I feel like the Martin goes farther up. Now comes the fun part. Let me look back in my phone here. Okay, we can definitely see this. So, how do you get the mechanism out? Mechanism on this is real easy. Kind of like a 60. It's just sitting in there. So you take it. What I do is put my thumb here. And, oh, you know what? Before we do that, let's check out this. So this thing likes to shift back and forth. And I believe that's how you put the extra play onto this. So the way that I put it there, there's going to be a whole bunch of play. And then it starts turning. I don't have a coin in, but you can see it starts turning that. But if I were, oh yeah, lever, just shut that off. If I were to take this, spin it like that, now there's absolutely no play in it. And you got to kind of get it right. You got to get those teeth together there. Now there's no play. I assume that's a feature. That also could be how the extra 30 minutes work. This is the position that it was in when I first got it, so I always put it in that position. But it's interesting that that does change. The function always comes back to that position there with the turn arrow pointing that way. There is an end to the arrow there, but yeah. So that's how that works. So we open this up. There you can see those jaws moving there. Hopefully that's easy enough to see. Yeah, I think you can see that there. That's a little easier, isn't it? So yeah, you can see the jaws there. You can see the indicator there. So going a little deeper. So I'm going to take this off. like that, so I don't need to worry about bending it. And then how do you take the mechanism out? Like I said, it's like the 60 where it's just sitting in there. There's not bolts or screws holding it. So I grab here and underneath and very gently kind of wiggle a little bit, and you're taking 4 screws off of the little dropouts that they sit on. So this comes out and under like that. Let's look at the inside of the housing before we do anything else. So once again, that's the jaw mechanism that is held on, do this, big springs under there, and then you can see where the that is. So underneath there is a plate. Okay, you can see the nut there. There's going to be a nut on the other side. That's what's holding the dome on. I am not going to take that dome out. I mean, a little nervous as it is, messing around with this thing right after I sold it. So we'll just leave that as is. So, set this to the side. Oh yeah, I was thinking about this. If you don't have this thing attached and you happened to close it, you could snap this thing closed, and then you're going to have to fish something up and underneath. So if you take this off, maybe be careful. All right, there we are. It doesn't look like there was a gasket around here. It just kind of has some grease around it, so I don't know how weatherproof these things actually were. This one's in great shape, thankfully. But yeah, I don't know how weatherproof this was. TT110 is your part number there. Oh yeah, and this is what, so we can show this off. Let's make sure that that's showing in the window so you can see this and this, this and this. Those are going, and these screws. So the screws have a little collar on them, and that's where that 4th one doesn't fit in. Maybe I have the wrong one in a different spot, I don't know. But 3 of them fit, so there's 3 on here. Those are what are fitting into here and sort of slipping down in. And yeah, these actually can be taken off. The rest of the inside there appears to be cast. So we will move to the mechanism now, and we'll have to do a little revamping of how maybe we can go in like that, and that doesn't seem too bad. All right, we'll work with that. So to remove unit, push up, number 201 there, doesn't have the TT, but the front plate is TT204. We're going to leave all of this. At the very end, I do want to take this off just to see how it's attached and what you can see underneath. We are not going to go all the way into this mechanism. These screws, they're not coming off. I'm not confident with that. But first thing, if you're working on one of these, just take your ball out. It's just on a little rod. You know, it's this little plastic half cup nipple looking thing with a rod there, and that's, you'll see what that goes up against in a little bit. So taking this apart, I'm a little worried myself about scratching this up and hurting the indicator there. It's already basically right on the thing. So we're going to be super careful as we work on this, because look at that arrow right there. That is basically touching it, maybe a 0.5 millimeter off. So be very careful while we work on this. And yeah, I haven't ever gone all the way into this and done a full tear down the way I do with the 50s and 60s. So I don't know how complicated parts of the coin transport mechanism are. I just know what the clock looks like, and you're probably curious about that too. It's going to be anticlimactic here in a second. So this is a turret timer mechanism unit, TT200. I would assume that all of these were the same. And when I first pulled this thing off and opened it, I said, oh wow, I'm going to get to see a clock I've never seen before, some crazy mechanism. Like if you've ever had an Alfco twin and you've opened it up, it's just so different from everything else, and you think, wow, there's going to be such a learning curve on this, and you open it up and it's an upside down Duncan. So sorry for the the anticlimactic bit there. This one just doesn't like to keep going. You can see how clean it is. Oops, I was off camera there. All right, let's move this over so that doesn't happen again. You can see, how clean it is, but it just likes to stop. I've already oiled it. I don't want to go any deeper on it. And if you just shake it, or the normal shake you need to do is kind of like that. Dang it, normal shake's kind of like that. It keeps going, but it's a pain in the butt. So starting from the top here, this would sit right there against that bit. So you've got this sitting kind of like that. And then when this gets down to 0, that's going to kick this arm up. It is stopped from moving right now by, this, which goes into there. So like if we were able to kick that up, click, there she goes, like that. So this is hit by, let's see here. Can you see this screw in here? Hopefully you can. That will eventually contact this, which, I can get this, clicks it up. So that's how your red ball bit works. And you can see they put, here's a better way. You can see here, it's a little adjustment screw. So that's the way that you can probably get this within 5 seconds or so, because this is going to adjust tighter. So you screw it in, it's going to, what do you think about this? If you screw it in, it's going to pop the ball up sooner. So you're taking time off of the clock, basically, by tightening that. And by loosening it, you are making it so it's going to run longer. So we want this down right now because we don't want anything bad to happen. But as this moves up, it's going to pop that. And let's do it again, just so it's fun. Right there. There it goes. Aren't these things cool? So along the inside here, you can see this thing shifting back and forth. Doesn't do anything to the clock, but you can see it shifting back and forth, and that's the play that this has. Once it actually engages, it's going to turn the thing, but we don't have a coin in here. And I guess I could slip a penny in here where I could see what happens, but I'm a little reticent to do so. That is your mechanism. The coin slot is this here. So that's going to match up with this bit here. So the coin comes in, goes right in there to the inside. So if we threw a coin in there and then we turned this, we would most likely add like 12 minutes to it for a penny. We'll do that once it's all back together. So that's what she looks like on the inside. No part number on the back here. And yes, these two plates do come apart. Probably not as important as, on the Duncan, where if you take the clock plate and the ratchet plate apart, everything starts kind of falling apart. But I'm not confident in taking that apart. I also noticed this screw here. I have no idea what it does. I am hoping to get another one of these in about 6 months from another collector who said he thinks he's ready to sell, and the coins don't actually register. You can just take the handle and turn it at any time to add time. It's a 9-hour mechanism, and I have seen another 9-hour mechanism that sold a few years back. So I think that 9-hour was maybe a common one that they sold. They had the 16 or the 2-hour and the 9-hour. So I'm hoping to get that one and play around with that one a little more. But since I'm selling this one, I don't feel like mucking about all that much. So I really wish this thing would just keep going. I've already put the oil on it. There's not that much else I can show you on the mechanism and the front here, though we will grab this. And I'm very interested in what this is going to look like. So these have little locking washers underneath. So we'll very gently pull this off. And everybody out in YouTube land, please cross your fingers that a whole bunch of springs and cams and who knows what else don't go shooting off when we pull this plate. I really don't think it's gonna. I did say anticlimactic earlier, didn't I? Okay. So that just attaches to there. There's the, yeah, I don't want to lose my little washers, but there's just some of that molybdenum grease on there that you see on these that holds that together. Okay. So that's just the connection. There is nothing in there. You can't see where the coins are being transported. I was hoping maybe we would see part of how the coins contact. So the coin must come in here, and the coin has to make something contact this so that things can move. Not sure how that's working. It's almost, just looking at it, it's almost more like a parkometer than the Duncan from whence this clock came. So yeah, that's going to happen because of that play. Once again, I want to get this in there tight. So hold it there with my thumb and just, there we go. Yeah, so you can see where that play comes in. It's able to go to there. If I put it back together now, it's just going to immediately engage, and if it's there, there's some play in it, and that might have something to do with that extra 30 minutes. I don't know. So yeah, something inside of here must make it contact and allow it to turn further, and that is the mystery to me. How does the actual transport of the coin, how does it sort a nickel versus a penny? Always a fun thing for me is to look at these things and see not only how did they figure out how to take multiple pieces of change, but how were they all working around the 1931 Samuel Miller patent that Duncan is based off of, because a lot of the earlier ones were still working around that patent, and if it was too similar, you were going to get sued. So this had to have something different than that, and probably Parkometer had their patent at this point too, although I know a bit about the patent history on these. Once again, not saying I'm the expert in all of this, but this works very differently from the coin transport that's behind the handle on a Duncan. So I think it's interesting to look at. Let's go ahead and put this back together. She's still trying to tick. It takes like 3 hours for this thing to actually tick down a full hour and a half, 2 hours. But it always gets there, always ticks all the way down. So yeah, looking at this, trying to think. Oh, okay, maybe I've got this solved here. We've got this one's, I am a little off camera. This one's a little further in, that's a little further in, that's a little further in, and that isn't. So maybe that's going to solve my screw problem. So let's try it. Long one, long one, long one. Just gotta remember where the short one is. So we'll put this back together. I didn't have an agenda for this meeting. Good Lord. I didn't have an agenda for this video. I just figured I'd, take it apart, play around with it, talk about what I knew about it, talk about what I saw. If you find this helpful, drop a comment. Love to hear from other people. If you've got one of these, and shameless plug, if you got one to sell, or if you've got things of this type and vintage and rarity, I'm not looking to buy a whole bunch of duplexes or 60s or 90s or something like that. I like the old stuff for the personal collection. So if you've got older stuff like this, Martins, Rockolas, if you've got a Vogelsong, if you've got the older Duncans, if you've got those old heavy-duty car parks, I'd love to have that. I've never had the old Rhodes. I'd love to have one of those, and some of those crazy oddball ones that are out there that are just impossible to find. I'd love to find some of those too. If you've got the original McGee Hale, boy, I'm going to pay a fair price for those. So please hit me up through here if you have anything that you are looking to sell and would like a fair price for. And also, if you want to see more just showing off what the mechanisms are, let me know. I work on 2 or 3 of them a week sometimes with all the people that are sending them to me to work on. I work mostly on the Duncans, but I'll take anything and try to fix it. I can take a Duncan all the way down to the mainspring and build it back up from there. Throw her in I got a little ultrasonic parts washer if I need. So I do work on the Model 50 mostly, but I can work on 60s as well. I've worked in a Golden Circle before. Those are fun. It just has a little extra mechanism on it to run the token dispenser, but it's cool to see. I wish I would have taken a video of that one that I worked on. So here we go. We'll put this back in. We do need to remember our red ball. So yeah, that should go all the way down. If that didn't go all the way down, that would mean that we forgot to re-click that thing. And just for my own sanity, oh yeah, that's going to turn. Those feel tight. We'll go back to there, and we go back in. So you want to slip underneath for the ball, and the plate stays in front. Just kind of wiggle until it feels like all four are in, and you're set. So there's that. We'll go up. Oh no, we'll put the arm on first. I just talked about how that would be a very bad idea to not put your arm on before you put it back together. There's that. Clock's clicking along all right. I'm hoping to run this down 3 or 4 times. A lot of guys get too worried about the fact that it's ticking and stopping and ticking and stopping, and they spray the hell out of it with WD-40, or they throw it right in the parts washer. Sometimes on these things, first off, use clock oil or sewing machine oil, maybe a 3-in-1 oil. Don't soak these mechanisms with just WD-40 and cross your fingers. It's not a good long-term idea. But more than that, sometimes it just takes running it 3 or 4 times and it kind of comes back to life. So it's not that you need to work on cleaning it all out, although it's good to get all the gunk out. Sometimes it's just a matter of, there, you get a better look at this. Sometimes it's just a matter of making sure that it has gotten all the way down to 0 4 or 5 times recently, and they start ticking along just fine. So sometimes with these things, less is more. So, key doesn't like to go all the way to the stop on this, but once it's at the stop, it does hold it. That's nice. I always like that. You've got a key that does that. So let's see. If we throw a penny in, how's the view? There, and we'll move the light so we aren't. Okay, so if we throw a penny in, we should go from 48 to 60, right? There's that. Contacts. Nice satisfying tink on the cast coin tray in there. So now we're at 60. So yeah, that is the Vogelsong. Grab a change out of here. Drop a comment if you've got one, or just if you liked seeing all of this. Got a couple other rare ones that I might show off someday. I've been learning a lot about the differences with the Duncan Model 40s and early 50s, and differences in mechanism, casting, and things like that, doors, all of the stuff to make it period appropriate for the early ones. So someday I will do a video about that. But thankfully it's still ticking along after showing you all of this, and thanks for watching. Hope you find one someday.